Now we're going to talk about one of the ways evolution works, or one of the mechanisms by which evolution occurs. We're going to talk specifically about sexual selection. So, what is sexual selection? Well, we can see evidence that something is going on in evolution that doesn't necessarily make sense. We see traits or characteristics that are disadvantageous, that persist or even increase, suggesting there's got to be some selection for them. These are things like the bright red color of male cardinals. Well, it makes them easy to see for the females, but it also makes it easy to be seen by predators. How about crickets singing to attract mates? Same kind of thing. You're attracting mates, you're going to also be attracting predators. So we take these harmful or potentially harmful traits as evidence that sexual selection is occurring. This generally occurs in species where one of the genders decides who does the mating. Either the females choose which males they're going to breed with, or the males compete for resources that attract females or just for access to the females. These potentially harmful traits are one way that females can judge fitness in a male. The idea here is that if he can survive looking or sounding like that, he has got to be massively fit. So, female mate choice is often characterized by brightly colored males, or loud singing males, or males that do very conspicuous performances trying to attract the females. It's very, very common in birds, but it's not exclusively to birds. Mammals do it too. And these bright mate attracting characteristics say, I'm healthy. I have good genes and I will father fit children. This is great. I mean, there's more predation on the males, but it's a way for females to judge which males are most fit. Now, sometimes these characteristics can result in something called runaway selection. Our example of this, well, most of the time the example you get is the peacock. But I want to talk about the babirusa. It is a wild pig species that has these really elaborate tusks. If you look at the skull on the right, you can see the tusks are coming out of the skull. That's because the tusks, their teeth, that would, in a different species, be pointing downward from the upper jaw, but instead they grow through the roof of the upper jaw and curve backwards. And yes, in mature males, in older males, those horns can sometimes continue growing and end up growing into the skull. In the wild, most males don't live that long, but this is the kind of thing we're talking about here. There's an extreme phenotype, an extreme characteristic, these long tusks. And the females say, I want the male with the longest tusks. As that extreme phenotype starts to become common, then females choose the more extreme phenotype. And this selected phenotype can change dramatically. We see this in lots of wild species of fish and birds, in reptiles. We see it in the tail of the peacock and the bright colors of the wild guppy. And it can keep going until it gets to a point where the increased mating opportunities is balanced out by lower survival rates. And that is what we say that's what we mean when we say we're talking about runaway selection. A phenotype or a characteristic that has gone to the point where it's reducing survivability of the males more than it's benefiting them. Now, sometimes there's male mate choice. And generally speaking, the females don't choose the males in these situations. The males have the biggest impact on who gets to breed. Males will fight. They're doing this to control territory in places where there are sparse resources. So there's not a lot of water or shelter or a reliable food supply. So the males own the territory where there is water, where there is food, where there is shelter. And in some species, the male will travel with a group of females to fend off other males. So these are his females. We think about this with things like horses, for example. The northern elephant seal is an extreme example of this. These things are massively huge, and they pull out or haul ashore at specific beaches in order for the females to give birth and for mating. So the males are fighting for the beach territory. The winners get called the beach master. The vast majority of males do not get an opportunity to breed. Anytime you have male mate choice, the majority of males do not get to breed. In the northern elephant seal, the most successful males actually can produce 80 to 100 offspring. But they're less than 5% of all of the males that are born. Now, male mate choice is not an absolute. Males will try to control the territory, but females might go, yeah, I don't care, I don't like you anyway. Or they may decide, I'm going to mate with more than one male to increase the genetic diversity of my offspring and increase the likelihood that some of them will survive. And sometimes they sneak off away from the dominant male to mate with other males. So, as usual, it's complicated. The other thing to point out is that a lot of species mate for reasons other than reproduction. So they might mate for pleasure or to reinforce social bonds, and those type of matings do not influence sexual selection. Okay, so we've talked about female mate choice, which is very common in birds, male mate choice, which is more common in mammals. One of the ways we know that sexual selection is occurring is that whenever these situations arise, males and females look noticeably different. This is called sexual dimorphism. Di refers to two, morph refers to appearance. And so we have these two eclectus parrots on the left One is male and one is female. And on the right, we have Inyala or Nyala. The one with the horns, the bigger one is the male and the smaller one is the female. The difference can be in size, it can be in color, it can be in things like horns, the mane of the lion, the tusks of the Barbarossa, all of these sorts of things that males use to show that they are healthy or they use to compete for females. And since we're talking about sexual selection, I have to talk about spotted hyenas. Whew. One of these hyenas is female. The other one is male. Could you tell the difference? Do you know which one's which? I'm not going to tell you because it's hard to tell. Hyenas have a very they have a social structure that is not what we usually think of. In the spotted hyena, the females are dominant. And so they have a lot of testosterone compared to females of other species. And what you're looking at is an enlarged clitoris or pseudopenis. Well, one of them's a real penis. The other one's the pseudopenis. The dominant females will have really strong social support networks, largely of family members. She will have more offspring. She gets first dibs at the food. Males that are her offspring will outrank lower ranking females. So it's not just a strict all the females and then all the males. It's the dominant females, then the more dominant males, then the less dominant females and the less dominant males. Interestingly, she has to mate through the pseudopenis and give birth through the pseudopenis. Oof, ouch. I don't know what evolution was thinking when they passed this one out. Okay, so that is the overview of sexual selection.